Hey guys, welcome back. Day 3. So wasn't able to align the car yesterday, and instead worked on the ride height. So it's still got maybe a 2-finger gap all around. I think we might bring it down to a 1 finger, 1.5 finger gap. Also noticed that as I was parking the car outside on the street that there's a clunk coming from the rear. I know that solid kind of pillow ball mounts in the rears do tend to clunk, but for safety's sake, I'm just going to pull everything off and double check. Once we do that, finalize the right height, and then we can begin the alignment and the corner balance. So the clunking stuff in the rear, I'm not going to record it, just because you've seen me take it off already. So I think most of the video will be about the alignment setup and then the corner balancing. So it's bright and early, it's about 8:30, and I'm looking to finish this today. Let's go. Okay, so that was a pretty quick win. Turns out the clunking was the end link that I just snugged up instead of torquing down. Which is great. I really thought I had to take everything out and diagnose like a loose top mount, and that's not the case, so it saves me a lot of time. There's still clunking on the left side of the car or the driver's side, but I think that again is an end link that I haven't tightened down. What I did go ahead and do is lower the spring perch, I think by like 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch, and this is what it looks like. About maybe a finger now. This finger's hitting the entire finger, give or take. I think that's as low as I want to go. Not trying to slam the car. Again, this is all not for looks, but for function. And although I do want to lower the center of gravity, I don't want to run out of travel, and I don't want to ruin these beautiful mud flaps over speed bumps, because at stock height they do hit. So I think that's just about good. I'm going to go work on the driver's side rear, get to the same height, and then work on the front. And then when that's done, we'll get to aligning. Hey guys, so ride height is just about set, close enough. I played with the Camber yesterday, and it's pretty aggressive. It's sitting at over 3.5, 3.8, 3.9. So I want to dial it back just a little bit. So we're shooting for somewhere between 3 to 3.5, I think is good. Also had a chance to speak with Luke about the caster settings, and it looks like position 2 is a good place to start. So what I'm going to do right now for the Camber is to slide this pillow ball outward. Inboard's max camber, and I'm thinking maybe 2 grooves. So these are grooved to make it easier on the adjustments. That way you don't have to like index lines and try to line lines up. That's a pain in the ass. So I'm gonna remove these 4 bolts, slide it back 2 positions, and then bolt it back in. Cool, so that has now been adjusted. I am gonna go do the other side. Okay guys, the car is now on hub stands in the correct position. The leveling pads are out with the scales in them. I've zeroed them and put the left side of the car onto the pads, and you can kind of see the weights over here. And right now what I'm going to do is jack up the right side of the car and then move the pads into position and put the car down. Figured you guys could watch this in real time. kind of surprised the car only weighs 3,000 pounds. I guess it's missing some fuel, but it's kind of light. Alright, so I'm going to go load weights into the car, and then we'll get to measuring camber. Okay, I went in and put about 175 pounds, about my weight, and this is now the car loaded with my weight inside of it. I'm thinking that I'm going to leave the spare in there because the car is a little light on fuel right now, and that might help. But we'll see here. We'll just give it a shot and see what happens. I'm sure I'm going to be tweaking this car all the time. So let's get to measuring camber. Alright guys, so the camber gauge is out. Looking at the passenger front right, and it's at 2.4 degrees. I was hoping for maybe 3. I don't know if I really want to go play with the top mount again. So I'm going to play with the eccentric really fast and see if we can get us close to 3 real quick. So, loosened the 2 bolts and played with the eccentric, and I think I was just about maxing out the eccentric. You can kind of see the top of the knuckle move in and bottom out, and then as it cycles through its peak, it'll come back out, kind of like a wave. And I was just, this gauge was bouncing between 2.9 and 3, like super fickle. So I'm just coming up on 3. It's steady 3 now. I think we're pretty good. So I'm gonna tighten this down really quick at 114 pounds, lock it in, and then we'll move to the driver's side. Okay, everything's torqued to spec, and we're still at negative 3 degrees. Woo! Alright, let's go move on to the other side. Okay, we're on the driver's side now, and we're looking at about 2.4 degrees of negative camber. So, gonna loosen our bolts here, or nuts. Thumbs up. So negative 3 on both sides. Voila. Okay, now we got to move on to the rear. Okay, so the driver's side rear is at 3.0, so that's way too high, and we need to take that back. We do have adjustable lower control arms on the car, which you've seen during the installation. This makes it super easy to adjust camber for the rears. So I'm gonna adjust it, get into the car and adjust it, and leave the camera rolling so that you guys can see the camber change in real time. Okay, so that was pretty easy. 2.1. Camber all around is roughly where we need it to be. I'm going to bounce the car to make sure that the readings look legitimate. And then we're going to set up the strings to measure toe. Alright guys, so the tow rig is set up. These little yellow things over here that are holding this bar, that's a smart string setup. There's a similar rig on the front of the car, and there's a bar near the front. I don't know if you can see it over there. What'll end up happening is we're going to run two strings on each side to the front of the car, and then we're going to adjust them so that they are parallel to the center line of the car. That'll allow us to measure toe and make adjustments. However, before we go and do any of that, because we're going to have these strings all over the garage, they're really easy to bump and change. So before I do any of that, I'm going to center the steering wheel and make sure that the steering angle is 0, pointing straight ahead. That way any measurements I take are relative to the car going straight down the road. The other thing I should mention is that I don't align the car for a road crown. If you're not familiar with the crown, a lot of the roads here will slope to the right to help with water drainage. Not all road crowns are the same, and racetracks don't have road crowns, so I just don't align for road crowns. Alright, so let's go ahead and center the steering wheel, and maybe we'll get a shot of that for you. Okay, so the car's on, keys in there. Got the race capture data logger on right now, and I'm looking specifically at steering angle. So it looks like I'm at 5 degrees. I'd like to be at 0. Alright, we're at 0. I should say, sometimes this isn't 100%. I think the WRX has a bushing in the steering column. So while the sensor will read 0, sometimes it feels like the wheel isn't perfectly level or perfectly straight, but I'm talking like a small amount. It's not even, you barely notice it after a while. Okay, so now that it's set at 0, I actually want to lock the steering wheel down so it doesn't move. And I've got the super crazy cool locking mechanism here. Let me go grab it. Alright, here's my steering lockout. It's actually a piece of electrical conduit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap some towels around the steering wheel to kind of protect the leather. And I'm going to use some C-clamps or worm clamps. One on each side of the steering wheel, and then smaller ones that will loop through the bigger ones on the steering wheel and lock down this bar to the steering wheel. And what that'll do is once I tighten everything up, as I start to make changes and grab the tie rod and do stuff, because the wheel is clamped to the bar and the bar is resting on the windowsill, it won't allow the wheel to turn. And that is the best method I've found so far. So let me go ahead and lock this in. Here are my 2 big clamps, 2 small clamps. Okay, so everything's loosely hooked up, right? And now what I want to do is start to tighten everything down and make sure that it's snug and doesn't move. So obviously, as that happens, as we kind of tighten everything down, got to go back and double check our steering angle because obviously it can move. So we got to be cognizant of it. So I'm going to reset the steering wheel to 0. monitor the data logger, and then start to really crank down on these clamps. Alright, so I got one clamp done. I'm going to go and do the other side. Figured I'd set up the camera so you guys can watch the steering angle with me. Okay, so I think that's pretty tight. I should be able to grab the wheel here, shake it, and steering angle does not move. So now we can go and finalize setting up our strings. Okay, so the strings are set up, running from the front of the car to the back of the car. Now we need to focus on getting these parallel. First thing I'm going to do is install the tow bars from the hub stands, or for the hub stands, and that'll give us a point to measure off of to the string. So let me go unpack those here and put them on. Okay, so all the tow bars have been installed, and the next thing I'm going to do is just try to get this string so that it's closer to the center of the hub, i.e. closer to this bar. It's sitting a little too high right now. This part about setting up the smart strings can take a bit of time, and it's just patience and going over it over and over and over again until you get it just right. So I'm going to do that. Once I have it roughly at the right height, then I'm going to measure the distance between the bar and the string until I get it so that the distance on the front axle and the rear axle, the distance on the front axle from the left to the right is the same, and the distance on the rear axle on the left and the right are the same, right? Once I achieve that, it tells me that my two strings are parallel to the center line of the car. Then I can start making toe measurements and toe adjustments. So this could take a little bit. No reason to have you guys watch the entire thing. I'll go ahead and get this done, and then we'll check back in once I finish. Okay, so a quick lesson here on how I'm going to make the measurements. So to make my strings parallel to the center line of the car, I'm going to make a measurement off the dead center to this hub net, which is actually the center of this tow bar. Make a measurement off of it, read off my string. And the idea is that this side, whatever number I get for this side, should be the same for that side. So I'll need to play with the rigs to make that happen, and that'll be the same for the front. Once I have that set up, then I can start playing with my toe measurements, right? And went ahead and got metal rulers because this tow bar has magnets, and I can set up these rulers right here, and as I make toe adjustments, I can just then read the values that I'm getting and figure out which direction my toe is headed, whether it's in or it's out or it's 0. And just looking at it right now, this number is a lot bigger than this number, meaning the wheel or the tire is closer to the string on the front than it is on the rear, which means I would have toe out. But nothing's been aligned, or we haven't created a center line and made the strings parallel. So this is just an example. It's not correct. Okay, quick little update here. Getting the lines close to the tow bar actually was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I think it's because I have this tow bar as a frame of reference, and it's just easier to see. So right now the lines are pretty much at the same level with one another and at the same level as the center of the hub. So now I'm working on making the lines at the rear of the car parallel. I took some initial measurements here with the ruler, and from the center to the string on this side of the car I'm getting 2 23rds over 32. So these are in 32nds of an inch, and on the other side of the car, on the rear right, I'm getting 2 7/30 Right, so I can ignore the 2 inches and just look at the 30 of an inch. And the difference between the two sides is 16/30, right? So I want to get it so that the two sides have equal readings, and if I add 8 to the right side and subtract 8 from this side, they should come close to 2 inches and 15/30. So that's really what I'm shooting for here. We'll try moving the rig around and see if we can get close. So I just wanted you guys to see this. So I'm using one ruler to square myself off against the back of the tow bar, then using my second ruler to come in and make my measurement, and I'm pretty close to 15/30. Now, the problem here is it's not going to be exact because I have some toe, and so the bar is at an angle, and so as I take measurements across the bar, it's going to be ever so slightly different. But this is just to get us started, and we'll double check these measurements as we move forward. So this is the rear left of the car, or the driver's side rear. Let's go see if our passenger side rear has the same measurement. Okay, so now we're on the passenger side rear. I'm going to square myself up to the bar again, slide my ruler in. Oops. And we're right there at 15/30. Perfect. That's exactly what we want to see. So now we know that this string and that string are exactly the same distance from this tow bar, and this tow bar is exactly the same distance from the hub. So therefore, this string right here in this position and that string over there in that position are parallel to the center line of the car. So let's go do the front now. Okay, so I made some measurements on the front. My front left is 2/25, and then my front left is 2/8/30 or 8/30. So the difference is 17. This sometimes happens. So ideally we split this 17 in half on both sides. We're going to add it to the front left. Oops. These should be flipped around. And we'll subtract it from the other one. We're already measuring down to 30 of an inch. Going half of a 30 can be difficult. But inevitably someone's going to run into the same problem. And really, I start to try to eyeball the difference between a 16 and a 17 here to shoot in between, right? Or not a 16 and a 17, but let's see here. So that's, we're looking at 8.5. So our target for the front would be something like 16.5, right? So we'll give it a shot. I'll try to show it to you. I wish it could be more exact than this, but it can't. And trust me, we're going to be pretty freaking close. Okay guys, so I wanted you to see this just because if you are doing your own alignments, you may run into this problem where you're kind of in between numbers. So if I line up right here and I look at it, a little bit of the string is covering the 17 and a little bit of the string is covering the 16. So I'm right in between. Now I know that doesn't sound like super accurate, but again, this is a 32nd of an inch. And what we can do here is take a mental picture of what we see and how the string is crossing these two numbers, and then go to the other side and compare that mental picture. If that picture or that sight is about the same or close to the same, then chances are we're equal on both sides. And in this case, we are. So now we know that these two strings are parallel to the center line of the car. So before I do anything else, before I start screwing with toe, I'm going to go back, double check all my numbers, make sure that my strings are parallel, then we can finally start making some adjustments. Okay, so I double checked, everything is now parallel. So we're ready to make toe adjustments. peaked at the steering angle and it's at 0. So now we need to set toe for the tires. I set the rulers here and here, as you can see. This front measurement is showing me 13:30 seconds, and this rear one is giving me 20:30 seconds. So I've got some toe out, right? My rear number is bigger than my front number, which means the front of my tire is closer to the string. I'm toed out. If I split the difference, which is about 7, so 7 divided by 2, 3.5, I should see about 16.5 is the number I'm shooting for on the front and the back of these rulers. If I can get close to 16.5 on both of these, then my tire is parallel to the string, which means it's parallel to the center line of the car. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and let's see how close I can get. Okay, so I've got roughly 16.5 on both the rulers. It's super close. I think it's almost non-discernible. So this side of the car is done. I'm gonna go now do the driver's side. I totally forgot that I have adjustable drop links, so I should be disconnecting these drop links before I land the car. Already done the camber and front toe, but when we do the corner balancing, we're going to likely have to touch all that again. So right now, I'm going to go around the car and disconnect all the end links. Okay, so all the sway bars are disconnected. I'm going to set up my rear rulers for the toe, and then start playing with that toe eccentric over there. Really don't like doing toes or cambers with eccentrics, and I should get an adjustable toe arm and make life so much easier, but I don't have it, so there's likely going to be a bit of fiddling here, but we'll see how it goes. Hey guys, so toes set, camber set, now we're going to corner balance the car. The end links have been disconnected, everything's been triple checked, scales are on, I've got the weights on them. I've got a spreadsheet here on my computer. I'm going to go ahead and punch these numbers in. Okay, so I've got the numbers in the spreadsheet, and I don't know if this is by chance, but the car is ridiculously close to 50-50 as it sits. It's literally asking me to add 2 pounds to the front right, 2 pounds to the rear right, and take 2 pounds from the other diagonal. So I don't know if that's just by chance. Definitely not how Subaru designed it, because there's parts on here that are not from Subaru, and obviously an aftermarket seat and all that stuff. But we're going to follow the spreadsheet, make some height adjustments here, and see what happens. Okay, so after maybe an hour of playing around with the corner scales and adjusting the length of the coilovers in half-turn intervals, this is the corner weight that I managed to obtain, so pretty close to 50-50, off by 0.02%, and probably a margin of error there, so it really doesn't matter. Most important thing is to note the length at which you start when you begin the corner balancing process. Note whether or not you extend or shorten the coilover and how much you extend or shorten it, and know that extending a coilover will increase the weight at that corner and on that diagonal, and shortening the coilover will decrease the weight on that corner and that diagonal.